want to bring in Dan Patterson. He's a senior writer for Tech Republic. He joins me now by phone. Dan, the word here, breach of trust was used. What do you make of this statement?
Well, the statement is a reasonably accurate reflection of the timeline that data has been accessed from the Facebook platform. What's missing from Mr. Zuckerberg's statement is an acknowledgement of a breach of trust, if not a technical breach of code and encryption software. There certainly was, like you said, a breach of trust, and there's no acknowledgement or apology. And from a basic communication standpoint, we go a long way to earning the trust of users back by saying, hey, guys, we kind of blew this. Here's what we're doing to fix this. Instead, the statement reads much like a, hey, it's not our fault, it's their fault. And in terms of earning back trust, that it feels more defensive than it does, we're going to fix things.
From inside Facebook, it was our understanding that there was a divide from leadership there as to how to respond to this. What are you hearing about that?
Well, it appears as though there has been infighting within Facebook, or at least a dissent on how to handle issues like this for a lot longer than this particular issue. Of course, we can go back 4 months and 6 months in terms of how Facebook executives have dealt with this. And, of course, we can go back to almost 2006 with how Facebook themselves have kind of dealt with privacy problems in a contentious way. In fact, Mr. Zuckerberg said in 2006, after there was a big trust breach, he said, calm down, breathe, we hear you. So, again, it's not an expression of, hey, look, we might have messed up, but we're going to fix things. It is saying, you guys are freaking out. Stop freaking out. We'll fix it.
He did say we made mistakes. Do you think that this statement and coming forward, what is it now, 5-6 days into this, will be enough?
I don't know if it will be enough, and I think the users are the ones that will determine this. And there are close to 2 billion Facebook users, so they certainly have the advantage of scale. What they might have a harder time recovering from is the lack of trust and acquiring new users, younger users, and people who might leave to go to other platforms that offer similar services.
Zuckerberg says that they're going to restrict developers, their data, even further to prevent this abuse from happening. Do you believe that that's possible, Dan?
I believe that it is possible, and I believe that they will take certain steps. However, this problem is different than other problems because it cuts to the heart of Facebook's business model, and that is selling data to application developers and their advertising platform as a whole. So I think that it will be a lot more challenging for them to fix this. There isn't a switch that will allow them to make the same kind of revenue, but earn back trust at the same time.
This initial person who created this quiz, Alexander Kogan's personality quiz, it was installed, Zuckerberg says, in 300,000 people who then shared their data, some of their friends' data. Are you getting a sense from what you're hearing, just from users, Dan, that people are very concerned about this enough to delete the app and walk away?
Well, there certainly are a plethora of delete Facebook hashtags, and it seems only anecdotally that this is a problem that has legs for them, or at least it's a story that has metastasized and will continue to grow.
What are you watching for, Dan, now in the coming days?
I'm watching for other companies that had a similar MO to Cambridge Analytica to be exposed through, if not Facebook, the rest of the social web. Data targeting and analytics is nothing new, and data modeling of behavior is nothing new. But there are companies that are similar or have behaved in a similar way to Cambridge Analytica that could be exposed through similar or through the mining that we see now of what did happen with Cambridge.
And so now as Facebook's come forward and Mark Zuckerberg saying we made mistakes, do you think that the steps that he's suggesting that they go through is enough at this point?
Well, only time will tell. I do like that they laid out a case and that they do seem to have a long-term plan. I don't know if this is enough to, again, this goes to the heart of their business model, so I don't know if it's enough to tamp down the fears that a lot of people feel and earn back trust, and at the same time keep the money coming in.
Yeah, it's a platform that relies greatly on advertising, and how exactly they manage this going forward, we'll have to see. Dan, as we look forward, testimony on Capitol Hill, we're hearing Congress saying that they want more done on this. You know what happens when you start to regulate. It's not really beneficial to any company to come forward and admit we had any sort of breach, whether it's hacking, cyber, something like this. So what could you do when it comes to these social and these media apps that would allow these companies to come forward, admit these breaches, and fix it without them feeling like they're vulnerable?
Well, what these companies can do is communicate openly and honestly with both the public and with lawmakers. I think you're right when you say that, look, regulation is not really in anyone's best interest, and the best way you can tamp down at least the threat of regulation is by being open and transparent with how your business operates. Many in Silicon Valley fear regulation because they see that as the opposite of innovation, and it could slow down the economic progress. Of course, we know that data is the new oil, and the big five technology companies in Silicon Valley and Seattle are really drivers of digital transformation that's happening in almost every business, whether it's an SMB, a startup, or a massive enterprise company. So these companies they're the new oil or the new Detroit, and they are the drivers of the modern economy. If they are not able to communicate with regulators, then there could be economic consequences.
Dan, we're also seeing from Facebook CEO Sheryl Sandberg putting out her own statement saying that she also says, "I deeply regret that we did not do enough on Cambridge Analytica." The fact that we're hearing from both of them, she said that they've spent the past few days trying to get a fuller picture. Was ultimately the way this went down for Facebook, almost 6 days into it before we heard from a formal response from their executive board, has this become a lesson of what not to do when you reach some sort of a crisis like this?
I can't imagine that this won't be taught in communication schools on best practices and perhaps mistakes. It seems as though the company could have got in front of this story and simply been honest with their users, or at least said, hey, look, this is what's happening, this is how it happens, and we want you to know whether you are actually being modeled or not. And with every privacy bad story that has hit the press, Facebook comes across as though they're defensive and as though it's the user's fault. And again, I refer you to Mr. Zuckerberg's statement in 2006. It feels as though the company is irritated that their users are themselves irritated.
Yeah, and the fact that in this country, Dan, you really don't have rights to protect yourself as to who gets your data and how you can find out whether or not someone has your data in the way that it's protected in Europe. Do you think that'll change?
Well, we certainly see the GDPR, the Global Data Privacy Regulation that will be implemented in the EU on May 25th, has an echo across the entire cloud storage economy. And that does impact businesses large and small. This is a regulation that has certain requirements on how data is stored and accessed. So I would be surprised if we didn't see similar regulation here in the West, or companies reacting to the GDPR in ways that are at least proactive to potential Western regulation.
All right, Dan Patterson, senior writer with Tech Republic, helping us cover a formal apology coming from Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, saying we made mistakes. We have a responsibility to protect your data, and if we can't, then we don't deserve to serve you. Thank you very much for joining us, Dan.
Thank you.